Christian Parenting.
In our third installment of our Money Matters series, we are going to talk about teaching kids to be money smart. I'm Jay Holland, and I want to welcome you to Let's Parent on Purpose. This is a podcast for parents who want to thrive and not just survive their parenting years. Each week, I'll bring you an insight or an interview that will help strengthen your marriage, your parenting skills, or your personal walk with Jesus. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, share it with your friends. Go to letsparentonpurpose.com for more details. And if you really like it, you can sign up for my Things for Thursday email and get a copy of my Fun Family Conversations ebook by texting the word THINGS, THINGS, to 66866. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to encourage you. This is the very last week to sign up for the Perfectly Imperfect Parenting event. It's October 23rd and 24th. It's a part of the Christian Parenting Podcast Network, and I am so excited to be a part of it myself. Over 40 speakers on every kind of parenting topic that you can imagine. I just recently finished recording my talk on casting a vision for biblical manhood for our families. And that's just one, again, of over 40 talks. The price is just $49, and you get all of the content for this virtual event. It's really like a virtual conference, but you get to access it for the next 2 months, plus another week or so. So you get all of this content through the end of December, and you can sign up for that a couple of different ways. One is I'll put a link right here in the show notes, at the top of the show notes. And number two, you could just go to letsparentonpurpose.com and there'll be a little pop-up that comes up that will take you right to sign up. But I encourage you, sign up, get your friends to sign up, or don't have your friends sign up. Just bring them over to watch some of these different topics. So many amazing speakers. You will not regret it. I think it comes out to like $1.25 per talk. And what if just 2 or 3 of them are the key to transforming some area of your family or your parenting? How much would that be worth? So go ahead and do it. You can even pause right now, pause the podcast, take care of signing up, and then come back because I'll be right here. Well, if you haven't caught the first 2 episodes of this Money Matters series, I really would encourage you to go back and listen to them. You can listen to them out of order, but I really do think they build on one another when we first start with the heart of the matter. And then last week, Diane Hosing doing such an excellent job of talking about financial literacy for mom and dad. So, if you're not in a good place with financial literacy, this lesson here today actually will help you. Real basic, because sometimes we need things in kid terms versus adult terms, but please do go check that out. As I was thinking through what to present today on talking to our kids about money, on teaching them to be financially smart, I was thinking about, as a youth pastor, one of the things that I've realized is that parents in general talk least to their kids, it seems, about sex and about money, as far as in a personal way. Now, they'll talk about it in general terms, they like don't have sex, wait for sex, etc. But I find that often parents are very hesitant to instruct their children with any kind of personal example in their life. And the same thing in the realm of money, where most children don't know, and not just like 5-year-old kids, but even elementary and middle school and high school, a lot of times they don't know what their moms and dads make. They also don't know how much things cost. And so they don't really have a good concept of it. And your personal life, listen, in stages as it goes on, your personal life is as good of an explainer, a good of an example that you can give your kids as anything. And one of the things that happens, I know as well, is, typically when you get married, it might be the poorest that you are. Or at least you're scraping by. You might have children early, or, might have had children before you got married. But a lot of times, by the time a child is old enough to be aware of, finances and status and things like that, a lot of times moms and dads have righted the foot financially, or they've accumulated a little more wealth. And so they have a skewed perspective. They just kind of think that it was already there and that it will always be there. And we especially see this as young people graduate high school, sometimes graduate college, and they think about buying their first home or even first vehicle in these things, and they think that they should already be near. Maybe they shouldn't be exactly where mom and dad are, but they should be really near it. And what a skewed view of reality, because it often took decades of work to get us to where we are. So we want to use our own personal examples, and I just want to emphasize how important it is to be intentional in the teaching of your kids about money. And I have to confess that as I was preparing this for you today, I realized that I've kind of slacked, that everything that I'm telling you are things that I've taught, but some of them are things that, because we get busy, we get distracted, there's so many other things going on, I haven't continually enforced. And this is my inspiration for doing that. My talking to you is my accountability and motivation for doing that. Here's a really important thing for you to remember. Financial wisdom doesn't come from a lesson, but from hundreds of experiences wisely processed. Let me say that again. It's incredibly important. Financial wisdom for your children, for us, it doesn't come because you heard a lesson. It comes from hundreds of experiences wisely processed. So not just from having experience, because I know people that are experienced in being poor and foolish with their money, and no amount of foolish decisions and getting caught seems to help right the ship. I have family members that what I just described is an excellent description of them. And they have more experience of going without than I have ever had in my life. And that experience has not helped them remotely get ahead. If you remember back a number of weeks ago when we were, it was in the Shepherding a Child's Heart series, and I was talking with Virgil Tanner. And he said that they found that the greatest learning that happens in people, it kind of comes in this 70-20-10 ratio. So 70% is experiences, 20% is people, and 10% is content. And so this is going to be really helpful as we think about teaching our children to be smart with money. 70% is not just experience, it's experiences properly reflected upon. And then 20% is people, and you've got that down because you're the people. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, anybody else that's on your team and helping raise your kids, as well as the other children in your home, those are the people. And then 10% is the content. So you kind of set the parameters with the content, and then you reinforce them over and over and over again over the years with experiences. And then, hey, look at this. All of a sudden, you might have a wise young man or young woman when it comes to finances, a wise, hardworking, generous young man or woman. And I'll also tell you that there is a very good chance that even though you instill all of this, when it comes time for them to kind of get on their own, you might see a big dip. Like, it takes some time from being in the structure of your family house and all of the different things you've taught them and all of the things that you thought they really got. And then all of a sudden, as they step out on their own, they might stumble and fumble. They might make some foolish decisions before they get it. Praise God for foolish decisions. Don't bail them out of their foolish decisions, because there's nothing better for a young person to go through than a foolish decision that they own, especially if it's not like life-threatening or, harming like that. But a foolish decision that they own will teach them better than just about anything else. About a year ago, I had a podcast with an interview with Anthony O'Neill from the Dave Ramsey Financial Network, who talked about having a scholarship, going to college, getting a credit card because they were offering free pizzas if you signed up for it. And within a year, he had lost his scholarship, kicked out of college, was in over $10,000 debt, and living in his car. His parents ached over it, but they did not invite him back into the home right then. He said it hurt his feelings at the time, but it was the greatest thing for him because he learned to get his feet right. And then ultimately his parents did, when it looked like he was ready to be wise, his parents let him back in the house, charged him rent, and he began to right his ship financially. So that's kind of big picture. I'm going to talk today about 5 principles that we want to teach our kids to help them to long-term, over the lifetime, be smart and wise with money. All right, so there's 5 different categories that you're going to hit over and over and over again, and I'll even help you with setting up a little system to make this work. So the first one is working. When we talk about finances, the first thing we need to talk about is working, because the way you get money is by working. You might be a proponent of universal basic income or everything else, and that's wonderful, but you will set your children up so much better if from the very beginning you teach them that the way that you get money, the way that you are able to get money in order to get things is by working. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10, the Apostle Paul says, "Even while we were with you, we gave you this rule. If a man will not work, he shall not eat." That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10. And I want to encourage you of something. When my daughter was in preschool in Nashville at Lighthouse Christian School, she went to her first day of preschool, and when she came home, I asked her, what did you learn? And she said, 2 Thessalonians 3:10. Even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. If a man will not work, neither shall he eat. And I thought, like, what a brilliant preschool teacher to put down that work ethic is the first thing that's expected of her kids. I would have expected John 3:16 or something like that. It all came through the year, but she established that you work. And so one of the encouragements that I would give you, don't give your children an allowance. Think what's in the term allowance, the word allow. And that kind of gives the connotation that they're allowed a certain amount of income for existing every week. And I know that sometimes we do this to kind of bribe them so that if they do poorly, then, oh, we're going to take away your allowance. But that's really not how the world works, is it? You think about that. You don't just automatically get money for not being bad. You have to do things for it. So instead of an allowance, replace it with a commission system in your house. So instead of, you get $5 a week just because you exist, no, we're going to work on a commission system because there's a number of things that need to be done for our household to go by, and we're going to put a dollar value on each of these things. And if you want to earn money, here are the things that you can earn money for each week. And then we'll get to Saturday, make Saturday payday. And now as we walk into our commission system, maybe you did $7 or $8 worth of things. Wonderful. Well, maybe this week you were a little bit lazy or you were busy or whatever. And you only did $3 worth of things. Maybe you did nothing. You get nothing. The important thing is you also have to stop just buying things for your children because you want the commissions that they earn to be the money that they use to go places, to do things, to buy things. And I know you love your kids and you want to do special things for them, and you're going to, right? But there's nothing more special that I can think that you can do for your children than setting them up with a worldview that if I put hard work into it, there is reward involved, and that I am a master. God is sovereign, but I am not completely helpless in my situation. If I need something, I can use the resources God gave me and work towards it. So with working, no allowance, set up a commission system. And then the next thing is we're going to talk about what to do with that commission. And it's just simply 3 steps: giving, saving, spending. Giving, saving, spending. So I think the real practical way to do this, especially if your children are younger, as you pay them, go ahead and think ahead of time and pay, get dollar bills or quarters or however you're going to do it. Even get for them 3 jars. You can do this in a number of different ways. You can do an envelope, like 3 different envelopes, or you can do 3 different jars, or you can make a special bank, or if you want to, you can go on Amazon and type in Giving, Saving, Spending Bank, and I'm sure that somebody has already made it for you and will be happy to take your money for it. When you pay them, the first thing they do is they put their money in the giving jar or the giving envelope. And now, the next time we go to church, or if we have an orphan that we support, we teach them that God owns the world and that God has invited us to be a part of what He's done. We teach them that God has given us a responsibility to continue His work everywhere, that God has given us a responsibility to care for the poor, to take care of the sick, to do good things for those who are in need. And so the first thing we do is we give back to the Lord. You're teaching them, and I do not think that the tithe is a New Testament law. I really don't. I think the tithe is an incredible training wheels for giving. For some people, the tithe is incredibly sacrificial. If you're barely making it, giving up 10% of your income is a real challenge. For some people, you could give up 10% of your income and you wouldn't know the difference. And so that doesn't even doesn't even touch generosity. So with our children, though, you can talk to them about it and say, hey, do you want to give 10% to the Lord? Do you want to give 20% to the Lord? I would say just encourage them in a couple of different ways on there. I would encourage them to give to their local church. If you're involved in a local church, I would encourage you to do that, and not just because I'm a pastor and I get a commission on all of the offerings, which I don't, and I don't know any pastor who does. But I would do it because we're in a very consumeristic culture. We're in a society that, you know what, I'm going to pay for only the things that I want. And there's a lot of things that happen in a local church that really don't happen in the limelight. There's one thing that's just like the buildings and the electricity and the employees. But also, I know our church, the amount of benevolence that happens just on a very quiet level where we don't get up and announce it and celebrate it. We don't try to embarrass people with it. But in giving to your local church, you are giving to an embassy of the kingdom of God that is seeking to change and transform the lives of community around you. And you're probably blessing from it as well. So you want to train your children to do that. I also, we as a family give to a ministry called Hope Givers in India, orphan support. I think you might even hear a little blurb about Hope Givers and Hope Chest before this podcast is out today. We give to them because not only is it something that I think is needed over there, but it helps connect my children with the work of God and helps them to feel like I'm really personally be involved in it. With your commission, step number 1 is giving. On payday, you go ahead and in your giving jar, you set aside that money. And I think this is important as well for when you're training children, pay in cash. And this is one of the ones that's been hard for us because like everything's electronic now, bank accounts are electronic. It's easier for me to see how much my child has in their bank account than to have them carry cash around. But I think we need the visible, tangible picture of money and tactile feel of money and the physical bringing it and giving it to church. And if your church is closed right now because of the pandemic, take a trip there once a week and drop off your giving. That's just something you can do, or write it, put it in the mail, something like that. But do something where they get to be actively involved in the giving. I'd like to take a minute to tell you about a ministry that has changed my life. Hope Givers is a mission that rescues orphaned and at-risk children in India. They gather the children in hope homes across the nation and feed, clothe, and educate them in the name of Jesus. Many of these children grow up to be pastors or missionaries to the most unreached cities and villages of India and South Asia. Others become doctors, teachers, or just moms and dads with stable jobs raising families, having escaped generations of abject poverty. Not only have I supported Hope Givers over the years, I've also visited hope homes, schools, and churches in India several times. I've even spent Christmas at a hope home in India with my family. Hope Givers is the real deal. If you're looking for a way to give to Jesus this holiday season, I want to encourage your family to purchase a Hope Chest as a Christmas gift for an orphan. You'll provide clothing, toiletries, a blanket, a sweater, school supplies, a toy, and a special Christmas meal for a child that Jesus loves and died for. Find out more at www.hopegivers.org. Step number 2 is saving. Saving. So giving is number 1, saving is number 2. And the way that I like to talk about saving is I'm actually paying my future self. I want to be the best friend of future Jay. And the way that I do that is by making decisions now that will make his life as awesome as possible. And so saving is the way that that happens. And so again, you can work out these principles with your kids. You can work out the proportions. It could be a good one is, 10% for giving, 10% for savings, and then you have 80% for spending. You might decide to try to encourage them, hey, how about 10% for giving, 20% for savings, or 20% for giving? I think the proportions are definitely a wisdom issue in your home, but the principle should be the same. You should pay the Lord first, and you should pay your future self next, and then live off of what's left over. And if you missed the entire Financial Literacy for Mom and Dad podcast, there's a good nutshell of it. Give to the Lord first, take care of your future self, and then live on what's left over. So that's giving, saving. I want to give you a couple of thoughts. And by the way, a resource that's really helpful There's a Dave Ramsey resource for children. It's like Financial Peace for Kids. And I've got the little book here that I looked through. It's like juniors. It's a smart money class, I think, for kids. And we bought it a number of years ago. And it actually has kind of a whiteboard chore chart on it where you can set different things in your house that people can make money for. You can set the commission rates, and it's a really good visible way to do this. And I will put a link in the show notes. But one of the things you want to think through with savings is ages and stages. So if your kids are 3 to 5 years old, they really prefer instant gratification. So like if they want a big toy, maybe what you do is you take a big toy or take a picture of that big toy and you put a picture of it up. And so your little ones can remember, oh, I'm saving money for this toy. You can write the total cost of the toy and the number of weeks that it might take to save for that toy. And then you help them save their money by placing it in the save jar, save envelope. For your 6 to 8 year olds, they may start to find saving for larger items exciting, but they might need to figure out how long they need to save. So you can help them with the math. And one of the cool things about that is they may decide to take more of their free spending money and throw it into savings because they like these bigger ticket items. You can show them how to use the saving for, idea where it's not just your saving in general, but you can give them kind of a big item for it. I think at, 6 to 8 years old, you don't have to worry about saving their life savings right now, or, oh, you're saving up for a new car one day. Help them save for medium term, things that they want, good gratification, if it's a trip, if it's something like that, but something where there's going to be a reward before they hit 35 years old. For your 9 to 12-year-olds, you can start talking about saving for big things. My 12-year-old is fascinated by cars right now. So he's in a perfect time to start talking about, hey, if you start saving for a car now, you could pay cash for a sports car when you're 16. And then we won't tell him about car insurance yet. That would crush his soul. But praise them, give them the immediate gratification of praising as they save for these long-term things. So we've got giving, saving, and then the last one is spending. And with spending, look, they have worked for it. You've given them a payday. And so we try to within reason, let our children spend their money on what they want. If it's wise, if it's ethical, it doesn't mean that, and by the way, just because you bought all of this candy doesn't mean you get to eat all of this candy right now. And with mine as well, with video games, they still have to have a seatbelt because our boys have amassed more money than what they needed to over time because they were good and frugal, but then they'll spend it on video games. And so we try to talk through this stuff and be wise and do the whole, like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And if I just made a purchase like this within a recent time period, let's delay doing the same kind of purchase again for a little while because apparently I don't get as much satisfaction out of them as I want. I think I don't have to talk to you about spending so much. That's an easy one. If you get the giving down and the saving down, spending takes care of itself. But remember, another great idea with this. As your children are getting older, you can start transferring more and more of your spending responsibilities onto them. So for instance, I would not make my 3 to 5-year-olds buy their own clothes. That's just a natural blessing of being in the house. But by the time they get up to the middle school and high school years, as they start wanting more designer stuff, as they start wanting more stuff with status, I have no obligation before the Lord to buy them the status symbols. But if that's what they want to spend their money on, that's great. And so what you can do is you want more value out of them. They're older. They're more competent in your house. They can do things with greater commission. So you add on items that are going to make your life better, things that you would already have to do or have to pay for. You give it enough commission to where you feel a reward in it, they feel a reward in it, and you continue to transfer the responsibilities of adulthood over to them. So by high school, let them, unless it's Christmas or a birthday, I would say let them buy their clothes. Let them pay for their gas. If they're borrowing your car, that's great, but they get to, give it to them with the gas tank topped off and expect it to be returned with the gas tank topped off. Just little things like this, even though you may not need the money, it has nothing to do with whether you need the money and everything to do with whether you're creating a wise steward. So we've talked about working, giving, saving, spending. The last thing that we want to educate our children on is debt. Now, debt is a hard thing for kids to understand because they don't owe things like we do. We, meaning just in the United States, adults in the United States have accumulated over $4 trillion in debt. Currently, right now, for the first time in history, just credit card debt alone has topped $1 trillion in the United States. It might make it very convenient in the moment, but this is a terrible, terrible weight on people. It really starts to restrict your decision making. And so you want to start talking to them about debt when they're young, and you want to, so Dave Ramsey would say there's no such thing as good debt. And I think other people would say, a mortgage debt is not a bad debt. Consumer spending, things that are not assets are not wise debt. And truthfully, in some ways, a house is not an asset. So you can figure out the wisdom of how you want to talk about that. I'm not the financial expert there, but you do need to make them aware of debt. One of the good ways you can do this while they're little, you can point out commercials for credit cards and maybe even show them commercials for beer and commercials for credit cards and things like this, where you're like, hey, isn't it funny how they make it seem like this will solve all of your problems? It's the most natural thing in the world. And then talk to them about the shackles and addiction that people are in to substance abuse, to debt. And it's the same marketing strategies that happen with both of them. If you just use this credit card, everything will be easier, faster, happier, and no consequences or problems. And we just know that that's a lie. So again, I want to remind you that this is not a lesson that you have. And as you're listening, I hope that you're affirmed in some of the things that you're doing already, and you might be convicted at some of the things that have slipped. The good news is that we learn by multiple experiences. And so you have an experience of what it's like to teach your kids so far, and now you get to reflect on it and see what's working and adjust it. You get multiple opportunities to succeed and to fail in this, and sometimes we just have to tighten the ship. I pray that God would bless you with wise stewardship in your family, and that you could grow incredibly wise, generous, smart children. And as I think of generosity, I just think of, I feel like I'm at the point of life and where I get less and less and less real joy or pleasure or satisfaction out of purchases. I used to think that they were going to save my life and solve the world. And at this point, it kind of feels like they're just another burden to maintain. But the things that I've got to be involved in the realm of generosity are the things that give my heart just great happiness, because you see the transformation that happens. You see the hand of Jesus light up in generosity. And so you get to be a part of that with your kids. And I just encourage you to stick around for another week, because this coming week, I get to interview a sweet friend of mine, just an incredible mom, and actually a family member of mine, a sister-in-law of mine, who is going to talk about how they have worked to establish a culture of serving and generosity in their house and what they've seen it do. So let's work on our financial wisdom and generosity this week. And then next week, we're going to move into what does it look like to give our lives in generosity. I hope that this has been a blessing to you, and I just thank you so much for listening. You're a blessing to me. I will talk to you soon. Friend, I want to thank you so much for listening today. I pray it's been a blessing to you. And if it has, a couple things I would ask of you. Number one, share it with somebody else so that you can bless them. And number two, if you believe in the ministry and the Lord has put you in a place to support, would you consider becoming a regular supporter of Let's Parent on Purpose, or a one-time giver if that's the spot you're in? You can do so by going to letsparentonpurpose.com, and in the top right corner, click the little Give Donate button and become a part of our Patreon support community or a one-time giver. This is Jay Holland, thanking you so much for joining, reminding you there's all kinds of back issues and archives at Let's Parent on Purpose and ChristianParenting.org for you to explore. And I just want to remind you, parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. We'll talk to you soon.